The first question I asked, which was, as you know, Republicans successfully stopped H.R. 1, which would have rewritten all the rules governing the way elections are run, taking a lot of authority back away from the states. Are there any changes that you think should be made by Congress to improve the integrity of the election process, or is it something that should be left entirely to the states?
I'm for Tennessee. And when I say I'm for Tennessee, I think I mean that also in a state. I'm for the states. Recently, I spoke with 2 U.S. senators very directly, and I said, when I get to Congress, I'd like to introduce legislation that repeals the 17th Amendment, the direct election of U.S. senators. And here's why. While we saw what was happening on January 6th, we saw U.S. senators say they would stand with President Trump, but not just stand with President Trump, because it's not just about staying with one president. It's about the election integrity of their states, because I'm for states. I think the states should run the elections. But there's got to be a consequence for a senator that said they were going to do something on behalf of the state and didn't do it. And if you remember, at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, I can't really remember exact time, but it was in the morning on January 7th, the U.S. Senate, I remember this, it was so insulting. They said, we're not going to let this stop us. We're going to do what we came here to do. How tone deaf, right? How tone deaf. We just saw crazy riots, and that wasn't all Republicans, believe me. It was a charade. It was Washington at its best. Sad. But how you rein them in is you call those U.S. senators home and say, enough. We told you we had election problems, and you did your thing. You didn't do the state thing. And you wouldn't have had problems in Michigan. You wouldn't have had problems in Arizona. You wouldn't have had problems in Pennsylvania. All these, Georgia. I mean, look at Georgia. We knew Georgia was crazy. And actually, if the states were represented in the Senate, you probably would have had 2 Republicans from Georgia that represented Georgia's legislature, and they wouldn't have been those 2 Democrats. And we probably, again, wouldn't have had some of the chaos going on January 6th. So repeal the 17th Amendment and give the states back their voice, because the states deserve to speak. And I'll tell you another thing, too. Clear the rolls. We need to have easy ways to sign up, but figure it out. It's 2022. Figure out easy ways for people to sign up and clear the voter rolls. And if you want to participate this time, sign up.
So the follow-up question was, do you think Congress should change the reapportionment formula so it's based on citizen population rather than the total population of the U.S.? And second, do you think there is a remedy for the mistakes made by Congress which cheated some states out of seats that they should have had?
Well, obviously, when we talk about apportionment, it's really just good data for your state. Your state needs to know who's there. And so we need to really know who's there illegally and who's not there illegally. Don't misunderstand me here. I'm just saying so we can have all the facts, right? Because also there's a thing where you're a felon here in Tennessee and you can't vote, but that doesn't mean you don't exist. So you can't participate, but we do need to know who you are. So it's tough because, again, illegals, you definitely can't vote, but we probably should know there's X amount of people here, because when the federal government doesn't do their job again and they just mandate things on states, the buck stops with the state, and the state's the one that has to figure out what to do with X, Y, Z. So the remedy is to hold the U.S. Senate and Congress accountable to the states, because that's where elections are held, and that's who actually has to deal with the chaos, and the buck stops with the states.